It's total joy to be here today with all of you. We both thought we'd keep our comments short just because we're really interested in what's most alive for you. And for me, part of the reason I really enjoy conversation format is because I really see every one of us, our time, as a sacred resource. And I'm really committed that we begin to, as a culture, as a society, to begin basing value on reverence and respect. That I feel that if we have any hope of turning this ship around that we're on as a human family from crashing in the direction we're headed, that we have to renew a sense of reverence and respect for the earth and for one another. So I actually see your time as an incredible gift. And I know you got like some yummy food out of the deal. But I still see your time as valuable, and I thank you for choosing to share your time with us today. I feel that deeply, and I'm grateful, because especially I know those of you who are students, got a lot going on. And even if you're not, to be here today. And I hope our time together this afternoon will really enrich all of us and nourish us on every level, so that when we walk out of this building, we're so alive with our commitment for this earth that people can't help but notice us. That we'll have not only aliveness for our commitment to the earth, but aliveness for our commitment to all life, that there is no separation between humans and the planet and animals and anything, that we truly are all one. And no matter what our different political views are, religious views, spiritual views, any kind of difference in our views, we share this one sacred tiny little island spinning in the cosmos together. And if we don't find a way to connect to the reverence of that miracle and that magic, we will continue to be destructive. So my commitment in being here this afternoon is that I too get nourished on every level through our conversations, such that when we walk out those doors, we're so alive and passionate about being proud of the fact that we care for the earth and all of its being proud of the fact that we care for one another, being so excited about who we are and what we care about that people take notice just because our energy has changed. And for me, I share this to begin with because to me that's at the core of who I am and what I do. I actually tend to not even use the word sustainable because I try to look to nature's wisdom to teach me. And I figure if nature's been evolving for billions of years, it's probably figured out a few things along the way. It's probably got some things that it's kind of like tried out, and some things didn't work, some things has, and it's evolved that way, taking wisdom and evolving it. So I figure looking to nature for wisdom is probably a good idea. And when I look at nature's wisdom doesn't actually teach us to sustain. Sustainability is about basing something on sustaining where you are. Everything in nature is a closed loop system. It's actually based on regeneration, so it's beyond sustainability. There's no such thing as waste in a healthy ecosystem. Waste in a healthy ecosystem is actually food for something else. It's a closed loop system. And for me, this idea of really creating what's possible in our world is about approaching it, for me, as a way of thinking regeneratively, which includes on the energetic level. Because if we look at everything that's going wrong in the world today, it's easy to get upset, depressed, angry. We become judgmental, we point fingers, and then we wonder why nobody wants to come play with us. It's like, I don't know about you, but when somebody has their finger in my face and they're telling me how evil and wrong I am, I'm not very inspired to hear their point of view, right? So for me, this idea of beyond sustainability and being regenerative is also on the energy level. Like, how do we embody how amazingly fun, cool, creative, brilliant, diverse, beautiful, caring for life looks like and feels like? And that's what I'm committed to. I was not raised that way. I was raised with a traveling preacher for a father. My life was very much about religion. I was either in church or on the road to the next one. It was a really difficult childhood for me. And I actually would, anytime I could escape into nature, I would go there. And I think I know that that's part of why my actions in my life got ignited for the Redwoods in California. But also from the time I was very little, I had just this innate sense of what justice is. And I really feel like this conversation around sustainability or beyond sustainability gets so complicated in the world today, but it's really simple. It actually isn't that complicated. Like clean water, duh. You know? Energy that doesn't kill off the planet and potentially destroy future generations' health of life, duh. Food that isn't filled with toxic chemicals, duh. It's like, really, it's not that hard, y'all. But somehow we've gotten really disconnected from it, and we've created a society that makes it really difficult to do the right thing, even though it's such a simple thing to do. And for me, from the time I was little, I just got it. Like, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. And it wasn't some scientific thought or political thought, it was just what I call the duh factor. Like, this makes sense, this doesn't. And I feel like that's also really fueled me in who I've become in my life, is really, I approach it from that lens of just what makes sense. And for me, it's about what makes sense more in the wisdom of my heart. We get really caught in our heads in this society. And there's a reason why we can all sit and debate and have views coming from every different direction. And everybody's saying they're right and we're wrong, and we're right and they're wrong. And it's because we're all up in our heads all the time. But it's interesting, there's actually a whole proof that's come out in the scientific world, which is traditionally a world of the head. There's actually been proof that's come out in that world that shows that the first brain to develop in the fetus is actually the heart. The heart in the development of the fetus actually begins to function in the way of a brain first, before the brain is ever even developed when we're in the womb. So it actually, in uncovering that, what we're realizing is our innate wisdom is not just in our head, it's more in our core. Like, what has us be connected? It's our hearts. So I think I'll wrap it with that like, for me, I am on a trajectory, as woo-woo as it sounds. My trajectory is about love. It's not about hatred, it's not about anger, it's not about pointing fingers and judgment. Why? Because that kills off life. And how can I say I care about life and kill off life at the same time? So I've chosen to approach the problems through a lens of love. What would love have me say, think, and do every single moment of every day? It holds me accountable first. I have to pay attention to what I use. I bring my own reusable mug, my own water bottle, my own reusable container, my own napkin, reusable utensils, my own bag, all that stuff with me everywhere I go. And because, again, for me, it's kind of like, duh. But beyond that, it's because my heart won't allow me to cut down a tree and drill for oil to make plastic to put my coffee in a paper cup that came from a tree with a plastic lid that came from oil from underneath the ground, oftentimes in indigenous communities.
To use one time.
I'm sorry? To use one time, exactly, and then throw it away. That's the, like, to me, the daily choices is, like, my heart can't make that choice. My head can get all busy about how busy we all are, and, like today I forgot my mug or whatever, but my heart says, no, I can't trash the planet and trash people and throw away the future for coffee. My heart can't do that. And there's going to be time for sharing and questions here in just a minute.
I just want you to sit in the tree they're cutting down to replace a nasty center that's sufficient.
I think you should sit in that tree.
3 cats and a dog that I rescued, and I have to let them in and out. I would.
Okay, great. Well, the reason I respond that way, and I guess this is where I'll wrap it, is, we are all called to show up in the world with what we have to offer. And the first thing I feel we need to realize is that who we are is exactly who we are meant to be. Because we live in a society that teaches us not enough, we're not smart enough, rich enough, beautiful enough, whatever, tall enough, short enough, that we have not enough time. We live in a culture that's based on not enough. And it allows us to make destructive choices, because the first thing it does is disconnect us from ourselves. And so the first thing we have to do is embrace that who we are is exactly who we're meant to be. I have been stubborn and getting into trouble since I was 2 years old. I grew up with brothers and no sisters climbing trees. I finally figured out how to use that for good causes. But I also am way more than just a girl who goes sits in trees. I am an ever-evolving being. And so I live my life looking at what am I called to do and who am I called to be in this moment, and bringing 100% of who I am and 100% of who I am not to the work. And I feel that that's part of what's important for us too, is that we love to tout all of our greatness and we shy away from and hide from our not greatness, and it makes a mess. Like, we actually have to be authentic with embracing the fact that we're imperfect beings trying to figure out how to be on this planet and in this world together. And the way we pretend like we're better than someone else, I call it granolier than thou, that when we pretend like we're better than others, we kill off our true humanity. And when we do that, we're actually ends up in one way or another perpetuating the very same problems we're trying to end. Because the problems that are in the world, they're there because they're in us first. The clear cuts in the forest are the mirrors of the way we clear cut one another, the way we're disconnected from our connection to the earth. We wouldn't clear cut a forest if we felt connected to it. We wouldn't drop bombs on people and call them a statistic if we were connected to them. And so the outward wounds in the world are the mirrors for what's the wounds that are within us. And I feel that I'm an advocate for us all taking great stands and stepping up and being radical and rabble-rousers. I joke that there's the kids who color in the lines, there's the kids who color outside of the lines, and then there's kids like Daryl and I who are like, what lines? So I'm an advocate for like going beyond the lines, but I'm also an advocate for really embracing the not so pretty parts too, the not so great parts, because if I've seen the results of what happens when we pretend to be perfect. And it makes a mess, especially in organizing, where you're trying to bring different kinds of people from different walks of life together. And if we don't own and embrace our humanity, we end up perpetuating more violence against one another while we're trying to work for a peaceful world, and it will not work. And then the final thing I'll say is that humor is crucial. The issues are serious, but life is wild and crazy. We gotta lighten up. I talk about this every time. Like, we need to enjoy the miracle of our lives, even in the face of grief. I cry pretty much every day because I feel what we're doing. I get angry, I get frustrated, I get whiny, all those things. But if I get back to the miracle of my life, my humor returns. And having fun and being creative, I feel, is crucial in creating a world that's not only sustainable, but is beyond sustainable into regeneration.
Yeah. I don't know how to say anything after that. I guess I would just have to say that there's a lot of similarities, obviously, a lot of differences as well between our personalities, but one thing that is almost identical, even though it comes from a different gestation, is that everything that I do is also founded in that same basic thing, which is love. It's why I started my website, which is called DH Love Life, because it's about, I feel like if you love life, then you want to protect it. Then, it's your baby, and you lift the car off of it, and when I talk about loving life, I mean all life. I mean the creatures and the plants and the creatures in the oceans, rivers, and streams, as well as the creatures that fly and trot around. And I know it sounds corny, but for me, I mean, I don't know if much about having past lives and things, but if that's the case, then obviously this is my first one, because literally every day I'm still like, oh my God, water literally pours out of the ground fresh for you to drink. That is amazing. It's a miracle. And sometimes it comes out and it's hot enough to take a bath in. And it comes out with lithium in it that makes you feel like everything's great with the world. And then sometimes you can drop a little thing that's so tinier than you can almost even see in the ground, and a tree comes out of it, and then food comes off of that to feed you. And then you eat that food and you drop the leftover parts, and it makes more soil to grow more things. I mean, it's a miracle to me. And the creatures on this planet are like striped and spotted and transparent and glow in the dark and swim and have scales. And I mean, it's like, you can't make this stuff up. It's unbelievable. And I'm just like, literally every day I'm just like, oh, did you see that? You know, oh my God. I mean, just when I was walking here, I saw the giant datura plant, which is like hallucinogenic for one, but also beautiful, you know? And then you have this orchid trees over here that are, what? Who thought of that? That's crazy. I mean, it's just, and the fish is outside, and I mean, it's just, I think that I'm just blown away by what Mother Nature, what nature offers us, and it's so exciting and fascinating, and it gives us everything we need to survive, which is also amazing. You know, that actually we don't need to actually really work that hard to get the things we need to survive. What we need to work hard to is to protect those things that we have that we need to survive, and to learn how to encourage them, as Julia said, not to sustain, which is a goal considered where we're going, but to thrive. You know, I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is for things to, you know, to be regenerative and to thrive. You know, we don't want to just, I'm just going to sustain in my life. I'm gonna, you know, you want to grow. You want to continue to grow and be and blossom. You know, be as much as you can be. And for me, that's the really exciting thing. I've gone to a few of the TED conferences. I'm sure you guys have all heard about TED and know about it. But and there's, you know, a bunch of really smart, really creative, talented people at TED, and it's always a good brain tickle and stuff. And one of the things that really is just like, it freaks me out when I go, because at least a good portion of the time, they're all talking about, you know, building a new civilization on Mars. And I mean, you know, because we're going to trash this planet, so let's start moving on to the next one and figure out how we can survive there. And I'm like, if they would invest half of that energy and those resources, which are, you know, not insubstantial, on looking at this planet that we have here, we haven't even been to the two deepest parts of the ocean in at least, since the 60s. We don't even know what's down there. You know, the Mariana Trench, the Puerto Rican Trench, the two deepest parts of the ocean, no one's even explored them. And it blows my mind that we wouldn't at least do everything within our power to take care and protect the things that actually give us life, that actually, you know, we have everything here we need to survive. And actually, the numbers I've been told, we have everything that we need even to sustain as many people as we've already overpopulated this planet with. We actually have enough resources, food, farmable land, arable land, even water, even though we're about to hit peak water as well. We have everything available to us, and we even have the technology and the know-how and to solve the crises that we're facing. And so why you would go, well, you know, we're gonna mess that up, and let's start working on a plan B. Is just I don't get it, you know. So. Especially there's no oxygen up there. There's no soil up there. There's just it's just what? I don't want to live there. No. But anyway, so I guess it's just also kind of what Julia was saying. Like, to me, standing up for these things isn't a political stance. It's not red or blue. It's not. You know, yeah, it is kind of tree huggery, because I like hugging. The trees are pretty cool. You know, they're amazing. But it's just common sense, really. I mean, self-sufficiency is common sense. So, you know, being able to, you know, take care of your own needs, so you know that, you know, like if stuff goes down, everything is going to be cool. You got your base is covered. You got your energy. You got your fuel supply. You got your food. You know, that's pretty much common sense. Yeah, and communities, you know, who practice any kind of self-sufficiency within their communities is also common sense. And so I don't think standing up for the natural world and natural systems is in any way, you know, some weird radical thing. It's just common sense, you know, a survival instinct, and I guess it always goes back to, you know, like, yes, you know, the statistics are horrible. I don't even have to tell you guys, because you obviously are all here because you know them and understand them. You know, where we are right now at this point in time in history is incredibly crucial spot. I mean, I've heard many people say that we are at a turning point like no other civilization before has. I'm sure there's probably been many other civilizations that have hit those kinds of points, Mayan civilization and et cetera. So, but nevertheless, we're at a point where we have a choice to make. If we want to wake up and create the world that makes it habitable and wonderful for us and for every other living thing at the same time. And that's the thing that I really love about all these solution-based things, is that anytime you do something that's better for you, it's better for every other living thing too. It just goes down the line. I mean, it's better for the water, it's better for the creatures in that water, it's better for, et cetera, et cetera. And I love that. And I guess I'm also really, really excited about all of the solutions that we do have right now to the crises we face, whether they be, and I like Julia as well, I'm going to continue saying that because it's just the case, unfortunately, but it's all, to me, everyone says, well, are you associated with an organization, or are you, what is your main concern? And I just don't have one. I mean, I think I see humanitarian issues, environmental issues, animal welfare issues, they're all one and the same. It's all the same thing. How can you look at something that's that deeply interdependent and say one thing is more important than the other? And I think it's wonderful if you can find something that you absolutely are completely passionate about and be an advocate for that one aspect. For me, I've always been I see the forests and the trees, but I'm always seeing the forests too. So I've never been able to really like zero in on just, this is my thing. I only take care of, predators or raptors or whatever it is. I don't focus on one thing. I'm an advocate for the anti-slavery movement. I'm an advocate for humane and just treatment for other creatures, and for the oceans and the forests and all other living things. And my phone is really annoying. Sorry. Sorry.
That's her forest calling.
But anyway, oh shoot, I don't even know where it is. Anyway, sorry about that.
Wait a minute, while you have it, show them your very cool purse made from recycled can tops.
Soda can tops.
Isn't that
it's made by,
stylish? It's actually like, it looks cool.
Yeah,
and
the little
it's
Joan of
made in a
Arc
cool way.
situation. It's made by a women's co-op in Brazil that get these from the trash and then crochet them together. But what was I saying? Solutions. So anyway, I guess I'm really excited that we have solutions to. There's a recipe for how to end slavery in our lifetime, and it's outlined. There's a way to do it. There are natural ways to produce fungicides, herbicides, and pesticides with very little or no expense by farmers that is taking the Mexican farmers by a revolutionary storm, and it's expanding all over the world by a simple fermentation process from things you can find on your farms that will get people off of GMOs and off of chemical dependencies and chemical inputs and expensive inputs. This is why farmers in India and other places have been committing suicide. There are ways to bioremediate, store, and harvest water, clean water, and through permaculture practices and things. There are mushrooms that can clean up toxic oil spills in a quarter of the time of any other known method that come out edible. You could sell them at the farmer's market and eat them. They don't even show a trace of the oil afterwards. There are energy solutions. There are fuel solutions. There are solutions to everything that we are facing right now that can solve all the crises that we're facing if we just actually shared the information and had the will to employ them. But that's exciting news, because that just means we need to just do it, and part of that, part of what I like about that is trying to do that in my own life and trying to practice that in my daily life, but also, spreading the word, because it is good news, and it is a fact, and it doesn't mean that technology and innovation doesn't have its place, because things can always be made more efficient, more affordable, more available, and more amazing, but we already have enough to get going and to start taking care of these situations. It's just about whether or not we care about it and whether we have the will to employ it. So I guess that's what I'll say, and I'll end there, and we can chat or whatever.
So we're going to take questions now. The microphone is back there. Would like to begin? All right, go.
Hi. I was just wondering, what was, for you two personally, what was your trigger to start your battle or your struggle?
Want to go first?
That's a good question. I'm not an extrovert. I probably 10 years ago I would have thought I would faint and die if I had to talk in front of you guys. And I actually spoke in front of a room about this size full of 8 and 10-year-olds once and peed in my pants, literally. But all that really shifted for me, or began to shift for me, in terms of my own, it doesn't mean I don't still, my hands are still shaking a little bit, but I mean, my own, I got out of my own way, I guess, and I try to get out of my own way, and sometimes it's a little more challenging than others, but I got out of my own way. I started to get out of my own way after 9/11, and that was because I had been off the grid for about maybe 12 years by then. I hadn't been using petroleum in my car for maybe another 10 years, and I saw that we were going to war for oil, and I was like, what? Don't people know we don't need oil? We can fuel our cars. There's any petroleum car, any car that runs on regular gas with a tiny little modification can run on 100% alcohol. 100% alcohol with a simple modification. Any fuel-injected car, period. Done, And you can make alcohol from garbage, from waste. I mean, when all the, Prohibition and all the little apples that Johnny Appleseed was trotting around with weren't apples that people were eating and like, oh, it's a red delicious, it's great. He was dropping off seeds for spitter apples because people were making alcohol out of it. Once people started moving away from the coast, they couldn't get hold of whales because they were inland, and they couldn't burn whale oil for their lanterns. So they were making, fuel to run, to their lanterns, all the things. The first Ford ran on alcohol fuel. Everything was run on alcohol. So sometimes they drink it as well, but it wasn't, everyone didn't have, toothless Joe and their brother didn't have a still in their backyard so they could make hundreds of gallons of stuff to drink. They were using it as fuel, and it still is a fuel, and it can be made from a number of different things. You can bioremediate all your sewage, grow cattails in it, and it makes tons of alcohol. You can, anyway, so that's just one thing. And diesel engines, any diesel engine can run on any kind of vegetable oil or waste oil, whatever kind of oil you want, and that can be grown or can be used from, harvested from waste or algae, etc. So first thing I did, I was like, this is madness. And so the first thing I did was go, on the first anniversary of 9/11, I made an appointment to go on all of the Fox pundit shows, Hannity, O'Reilly, blah, 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 all those guys, and have a little chat. And then it sort of kind of built after that, and this one's responsible for my foray into direct action, which has been sort of also growing ever since then. And when she invited me down to the South Central Farm, and I was like, oh, I'll go make a little video about it, and I'll spread the word, and I'll be doing my part. And I went down and made a video about it, and I was so moved by the beauty that these farmers and that had created, and how incredible it was for the whole community, for the city, and how it served every single purpose. It was great for the creators, great for the people, great for the community, great for the planet, great for, it was one of those all-in-one solutions. It works, it's really brilliant. And I was so moved by it that that was it. I was like, okay, I guess I'm not going home tonight, and I didn't go home for another 3.5 weeks until I wound up in county and solitary, Thanks, Julia. But yeah, and then then I saw another opportunity with mountaintop removal to bring attention to that, and those kinds of things started happening. But it's an evolution, and I think I hope that I will continue evolving and getting more clear on how I can be effective. But that was the thing that started triggering me. Mm.
The same as Daryl. It's like there's many points that get us to where we are. I was one of those people who was the crazy tree hugger who, because I was saying we should be recycling. And that was crazy in the town that I lived in. My family traveled my whole life. We quit traveling in Jonesboro, Arkansas, which is not the epitome of enlightened community at all. Amen. That's right. He comes from that town too. And literally, like on campus, on my high school campus, we started a club, SAFE, Student Activists for Earth. And we literally started a tree planting program and a recycling program, and we were like the hippie radicals in school. So that was like my first foray. But then the kind of pivotal moment for me was the Redwoods. I had a very severe car wreck in 1996. I was designated driver, and we got hit by a drunk driver, and the steering wheel of the car went into my skull, and I lost quite a bit of my short-term memory, my motor skills. But I learned lessons the hard way, so the universe had to shove a steering wheel into my skull to steer me in the direction I was meant to be in my life. And it took almost a year of physical and cognitive therapy to recover from that wreck. And that made me go on a search of what's the difference between real value and perceived value. Because I had not nearly died, but basically everything I took for granted was ripped away from me. And I didn't know if I'd be able to walk and talk normally again. I didn't know if I'd be able to function, quote unquote, normally in society anymore. And so it made me really question my life and made me feel like, okay, if I'm gonna be here, I need to be here for a reason, like a real reason, a reason that speaks to my soul, a reason that gets me excited to get up out of bed in the morning and get to work in the world. And I didn't know what that was going to be. And 2 weeks after I was released from my last doctor, from healing from my wreck, some acquaintances of mine were going on a road trip, and one of the people backed out, and they needed someone to go to help pay for the expenses. And I was like, I'll go, because I'd spent my whole life traveling, and then for a year I hadn't been able to go anywhere because I was going through therapy. And about 2 days into the road trip, I was like, why did I do this? A really great way to learn about ourselves and other people is to go on a road trip. So 2 days into it, I was like, I don't think this is what I meant to sign up for. But I stuck it out a little while longer. We made it to the Redwoods of California. I entered the Redwoods for the first time, was completely humbled to be in the presence of these beings that are hundreds to thousands of years old, 200 to 300 feet tall, in a forest that's been millions of years in the making for a 2,000-year-old tree to be able to grow. Like, just being in the presence of that, what for me was the most, up to that point, the most sacred experience I'd ever had in my life. And then I went from that to witnessing my first clear cut and walking into the zone that had once been really, I'd walked to this beautiful, thriving, sacred cathedral and then walked into a place that looked like a bomb had been dropped. And as deeply as I'd been touched by the forest, I was just as deeply devastated by what I saw in the clear cuts. And I felt like I needed to do something to help, but I didn't know what that was. And then I ended up with a volunteer position at Reggae on the River, which is a big music festival in Northern California, and every year they have a theme, and that year's theme, it was dedicated to the preservation of the ancient forest. So they had all these speakers and groups tabling and everything. So on Sunday night, I made a commitment that I was gonna come back and I was gonna do whatever I could for the Redwoods. And I didn't know what that was gonna be. But part of what was interesting was that I tried to stop myself. I think that oftentimes our minds are bigger limitations than external forces are. That we have real things that we come up against, but the way our minds respond to that actually usually sets us up for failure more often than success, because we then place even more limitations on ourselves than are actually happening in the world. We set the bar really low so often with the way our mind responds to actual challenges. And so my mind said, well, Julia, what are you going to do? You're not an activist. You don't really even know what an activist is. You don't know what to do. You don't know anybody out here. You know, what are you going to do? So my mind was very limiting. But I pray not to a specific deity, but I pray to the universe and ask it for guidance. And as I was praying and asking for guidance, the answer that came to me was, Julia, if you have the capacity to say or do something when you see an injustice and you choose to be silent and walk away, your inactions are as much a part of the destruction as the action of others. And it was so clear that I knew I just had to make a commitment to it. A friend of mine says, you throw your hat over the fence and then you go figure out how to get it. And so for me, that was a pivotal point for me. And I think that part of the reason that issue is what really called me is because growing up, I actually experienced a lot of violence. And I would go out into nature, and oftentimes I would literally climb trees to get away from physical violence. And I would hide in the trees. I would go to the trees to take care of me. And so when I realized the trees needed me, I think that's why I got ignited in such a big way, because it spoke to something very, very deep within me.
Oh,
And-
that's cute.
What's cute?
Just that the trees took care of you, and then you wanted to take care of them
Yeah,
back.
exactly. It's nice. It's like we've been talking about all day. It's kind of simple, right? You know? And so that's really what it was. That's really why I think that things are always calling us, but when we allow ourselves to really be open, there's something that sparks. And for me, it was that. They took care of me, and then I did what I could to take care of them. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Do you have another question?
Okay, thank you. No.
Question? All right. I love how both of you guys talked about starting with yourself. Unfortunately, a lot of our leaders are not like-minded like us. How do you feel we could reach leaders other than electing people that are like-minded?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, that's a really challenging question, because I've never really put any faith in the political system. And especially now, after last year's ruling with the Citizens United versus the FEC, I recommend you guys all look into it. There's a great video on YouTube that Annie Leonard did called Citizens United versus FEC that explains it. But that is what gave corporations the right of personhood. It gave them First Amendment rights. And now they are allowed to put any amount of money into any political candidates, to back political candidates, which basically squashes the voice of regular people. So it even makes it harder to believe in any kind of political candidates and what their intentions and agendas are. But I think probably, so considering that, I always just think to once again, to go back to the self and just try to get yourself as much as possible, and it's a constant evolution, and I don't think it's ever going to end, but to get yourself in line with your beliefs and be as much of an example for yourself and for those around you as you can be, and then I really think things change more that way, you know, from the ground up. And I mean, it's definitely, you know, important to join the, you know, sort of the growing momentum to fight things like the Citizens United versus FEC, so that if we do get elected officials in office who have a conscience and do want to leave a real legacy, doing something that is altruistic, then there's some kind of a structure in place that will allow that. Right now, we don't really have that. But I think, and I don't know, what do you think, Julia? I mean, I just think that going, you know, taking it from that personal standpoint, it kind of always tends to humble even politicians, believe it or not. You know, it's weird. Like, they get kind of freaked out.
Yeah, I would second everything she said, for sure. And A couple things that I would add to that is I'm thinking of the Ben Harper song that says, when the people lead, the leaders they will have to follow, and all their lies and their alibis they will have to swallow. And I'm really present to like what is happening in Egypt and in that whole region right now of people who said, you know what, you are not leading us in a direction we want to go, you must step down. And it does tie back to the personal, though, because these are people who are willing to take great risks. People are dying. You know, the revolution in Egypt, a big turning point was when women who have been held back for so long said, we're going out on the streets. And you're either going to come with us, our brothers, our friends, our allies from the male counterpart, you're either going to go out there and help protect us, or you're not, but either way, we're going. And it just called forth a revolution. And I talk about this all the time, that in this country, we are addicted to comfort. All of us. We have an entire society.
And instant gratification.
And instant gratification, yes. And so we want to show up for one day of protest and we get pissed off when we don't change the world and we don't get covered in the media. Well, duh, because we just went out for a day, we went home and we turned on the media on our recliner with the remote control. Like, we're not actually out there risking for what we believe in. And the greatest changes in history and herstory have always happened when people are willing to put their bodies where their beliefs are. And if the leaders will not be accountable, especially because of bad laws that have been passed, we've got to get out. We've got to be willing to put our lives on the line, because our lives are on the line. Yeah. And we need to start living like it.
I'm really moved by what I'm hearing. You're two of the my favorite people, and you're just speaking my heart. On the day they deregulated alfalfa, which means they said, we are going to let genetically engineered alfalfa be grown. We are going to take away the father of food, which is the number 4 crop, alfalfa. On that day, the alfalfa spoke to me, and I started to grow the alfalfa. Because I'm an enchanted gardener, and the alfalfa talked to me. I started growing it. And it said, each of you needs to be an organic uprising. And as Julie was said, we have to get back our beat with nature. And what that means is each of us in this room needs to get back our beat with nature through growing a bit of our own food. And on this powerful Earth Day, I'm always reminded when I step into this building of this man here named Glenn, who, when he was a student here, they wanted to make a parking lot out of this spot where this park is and this building. He was a student. He said, no. And that's why we're sitting at the Scripps Cottage today, because of this beautiful man.
He chained himself to... Did you chain yourself?
Do you know what I'm saying? He was a student. He said, they said, we want a parking lot. He said, no, we're having a park. The students stopped. So I'm going to tell you what I see. There's the Native American in the front row who plays the drum, who just happens to be here. And at the end of 2 o'clock, I want to go outside and I want to hear that drum with all of us dancing and with all of us planting seeds and with all of us taking this campus and growing food here. Because we are in a food emergency, and this is no time to listen to people who are going to come wanting to eat your food in a few years. I'm telling you, we are in a food emergency. This is not normal times. We must grow food. We must feed the people within walking distance of this campus, and we must learn to grow food. As Julia said, get your beet back. Go out of this room and grow 1 beet in a pot. Get your beet back, and then you'll be the leader of the new enchanted garden era. Then you will be an organic uprising. Can you hear me?
Woohoo! Thank you.
There's a great organization called Organic Consumers Association, sorry. Organic Consumers Association, and they have a thing called Millions Against Monsanto, which is also very, very powerful in terms of getting the word out about what Monsanto's up to and trying to stop them and trying to get GMO food out of our our farming system and out of our grocery stores.
I feel like I've been aware of how to be conscious on an individual level, and I've pretty much tried to do everything that I personally can to help the environment myself, but I feel like I'm lacking an understanding on how to affect things on a global scale and where to really start being an activist to where it can affect people on a greater scale, and I just am overwhelmed with not knowing where to start or even begin to go from here. So if you have any advice at where I can start, or an organization or I know you're not affiliated with organizations, but something that would help me kind of reach more of a global scale with this whole movement, that would be great.
No ideas?
You go first.
Okay. Well, the first thing I always respond to people is, we actually have to reframe it with the question that says, what do I love to do? And then find the best place to plug that in. Because it is overwhelming, right? There's so much going wrong. There's so much going right, but there's also so much going wrong. And in this time where things are moving so quickly, that where do you plug in without getting run over? Like, it can be a bit intense. So one of the things I've found in my life is that we all have unique contributions that are unique to us, where we really thrive when we're in the space of that contribution, and that's what we should allow to become our compass to lead us in the direction of what we want to do. It's really kind of, I talk about it in the framework of getting underneath what we're called to do and getting into the space of who we're called to be. So who we're called to be is that fire within us that burns. It is that thing that has us be most alive. And to uncover what that is, and then find where that best fits in the world. Instead of trying to fit ourselves into this thing or that thing, this issue or that issue, this organization or that organization, find out who are we at our core, what is the offerings that we offer that really have us come alive, and then offer that. Partly because otherwise we'll burn smooth out. And I'm speaking from experience. So it's really, I feel like that's the first step. So because of that, it's
What's your tree?
Yes, what's your tree? That we all have a tree. We all have a symbolic, some of us have real trees, but some of it's just symbolic. Like, what is it that calls us and causes us to be bigger than we know ourselves to be? And the thing that calls us and causes us to do that is that thing that's unique to each of us. That's the first step, because otherwise, we might plug into something and then 6 months down the road still not feel it's quite right? Because we'll have tried to fit ourselves into something else versus being clear on who we are and inviting the world in to meet us there. And then the other thing, there's a lot of things that are going on, from 350.org to, there's just so many large-scale things that they're trying to kind of bridge this world of how do you do community-based actions but tie into a global network. And I feel like in many ways that's kind of the next step, because I look at everything that's kind of going wrong in the world, and it's what I call the bigger, better, faster now. Like, the bigger, better, faster now is pretty much at the core of everything that's wrong. And so I feel that part of the antidote is smaller and slower, not bigger, better, faster now to approach bigger, better, faster now. So anything we're plugging into on a global level, even in organization, a key component is building community. Whatever we choose to do, how do we build our relationships with one another, with the animals that share our community, with the land that shares our community? That honestly, I feel that the global system as it's currently occurring has to collapse. I joke that the best thing about unsustainability is that it's unsustainable. Thank goodness it's going to have to end. But part of what hurts us is who and what is destroyed as it collapses. That's what gets those of us who care. It's like we're seeing communities that we care about dying in the collapse. But the collapse can be compost. Compost, you bring intention and attention to. So if we look at the collapse as a view of compost, part of what it requires is that we think about how to grow our communities from the compost. And I feel like just constantly rushing after trying to solve the global problem in many ways keeps us perpetuating this bigger, better, faster now thing. So there are organizations and ways to plug into the global work, but I personally feel that a core component of it is first looking at ourselves, what has me most come alive, and then secondly, how can I build relationships of trust and connection with my community as I work for a world that works for all.
And just to add to that too, like it's all of this, so many of the solutions that that keep popping up are really about bringing things back to a community scale, community energy production, community food production, like those are the models that actually will work. So, this sort of global scale, it's telling us bring it back down to a human scale.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just want to say that, like, I personally grew up in, like, a world of comfort, like, in the suburbs and whatnot, and, like, I really had, like, no idea, like, what's going on, like, the choices I made and how they affected the planet. And then, like, it took, like, watching movies and reading books to, like, really kind of open my eyes. But then still that wasn't enough. Like, I have a lot of friends and myself, I've seen, like, Food Incorporated and other movies, and I still would go to McDonald's or, things like that, eat it. So I'm wondering, like, for a lot of people, like, in this, like, kind of situation, like, will it take, like, this abstract, like, information that we're going to start getting, like, more movies and more, like, media that supports it, or, like, do you think there's going to have to be an event that's going to, like, kind of, like, push people to do the right thing? And if so, like, what will the event be and how long will it take to happen?
The crystal ball says.
Obviously, you saw how people actually did start to respond a little differently after Katrina. People start to respond after crises. I would hate to see that, things have to get to crisis mode before we really change. So, what I think is to start creating a better party, throw we have a friend named Frank, and he's always, let's throw a better party, and everyone's going to just want to come on down. And I think that, create, whether it's in your neighborhood, in your home, or in your community, an example of what the world we want to see is. Start making it happen now, like not this is our future vision. Let's just bring it. And then everyone will want to come be part of it because it feels better, tastes better, smells better, costs less, and every way it's better, So who wouldn't want to join, So I think that's one way to avert having to wait for, the giant, nuclear meltdown, tsunami, earthquake situation to come and just take it all away.
Let's hope we're smart enough as a species to do it her way. Today marks the 1-year anniversary of the BP oil spill in the Gulf. And I just read today that BP is writing off its taxes, all of the expense it's incurring in cleaning up its own mess. $10 billion it's writing off as a loss on its tax returns. Yeah. I know that we as people actually have the power to stop that, to demand that that actually can't happen. We could actually create enough of a ruckus and a fuss that they could actually be held accountable. But whether or not we do that is up to us. The interesting thing is, as a species, we tend to respond to inspiration or crisis. Very rarely information alone does it. Information is important, but honestly, usually it takes inspiration or crisis along with that information to create change. So the crises are going to keep happening. Where I tie in with Daryl on this is like, let's inspire people to change. Let's make healthy organic food, vegan food, that's so delicious, and invite people to a potluck. Let's build, even this campus, honestly, I'm so impressed with what is happening on this campus around making sustainability really alive. And at the same time, just in my little bit of time here today, I was very clear that there's still a big disconnect happening on campus. There's like the business folks here, the green folks here, the cultural folks here. It's not that it's intentional and I'm not attacking anyone here, but it's just like the work we have to do is, how do we integrate more? How do we celebrate our diversity versus be freaked out by it and separated by it? And honestly, that's an easier thing to say than it is to do, because we have a lot of very sad history that we're having to overcome when we address these issues. There's so much from every angle that we have to work on. And we can either get caught up in the anger and the frustration at our past, and we can stay stopped, or we can create really fun, inspiring, creative, beautiful, delicious, celebratory parties that rock the diversity and rock the partnership and showcase it so much that people are like, there's something going on over there, and I want to go check it out. Because either way, our bad choices are going to keep causing crises, and the crises are going to keep getting worse. But I feel our only other job then is to bring information together in an inspiring way that creates the party that people want to come join.
How would you deal? I'm a tree freak. I spent 10 years fighting a neighbor who claimed my 110-year-old olive tree's leaves destroyed a roof. Till my prom date, who's a prominent attorney, said, "We'll sue you." But I went door to door with free trees as they're smoking with their beer can, mowing with the gas. Oh, who wants a dirty old tree? So I'm one tree on a block with 20 houses. And I do have the 2 acres with the creek, the crawdads, and the cattails.
Wonderful.
But making somebody that is not just ignorant, but stupid and stubborn, what do? You go to the door and you say free trees, and they go, ah!
Mm.
I mean, how do you overcome that basic obstinance?
If I
Just
told you,
one neighbor.
I know, but you know,
I've gotten 4 in around the neighborhood.
yeah, I got that. And what I also get is, like, I totally get your passion and your commitment and your care, and that
And my
rocks.
frustration. It's
Yeah,
like, I
and-
have nightmares. They
Yes.
you cut a limb. Someone reached in 3 feet and cut a limb that was kind enough to grow within the fence with a pole trimmer.
Yeah, no,
I wept. You got me crying in the back corner here.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your commitment. I appreciate your passion, and I can tell even from
That's
your.
why I need this.
Yeah,
I want
so-
to sue for a quick lift.
So I just want to reflect back to you that sometimes when we want to reach out to other people, we need to do the work to get our frustration and our rage out of the way first. That when I'm present to your care and your compassion, and in that way, I'm much more interested in hearing what you have to say. When I say you, I mean us, right? When we feel like someone actually cares about us too, we're more likely to listen. When we care about something and we're seeing it be destroyed, it's hard not to get reactive. It's hard not to get judgmental. It's hard not to get like in each other's face. But the reality is we may be right in that space, but we're not going to be very damn effective. So are we more committed to being right in moments like that, or are we more committed to being effective? And sometimes what that means for myself is I need to know when to put myself on a timeout. Like when when little kids are misbehaving, they get a timeout now to like work through their stuff and see if maybe there's a better way to express their needs and concerns in the moment. They get put on a timeout. I'm clear that when I'm really upset and worked up about something, sometimes the most effective thing I can do is put myself on a timeout so that I can get my frustration out of the way, and I can still show back up, still committed and still fierce, but I'm fierce in my love and not in my judgment, and I'm much more likely to have a success in that space.
Thank you. And I grew up in trees too. 26
Beautiful.
orchard.
Yay!
Tree orchard, hanging upside down.
That's great. I'm glad you had that experience. Thank
did.
you.
Thank you.
We're going to take one last question. We have one last question. All right, there we are.
Daryl, I really appreciate you sharing your message about the technological solutions already existing. And for anybody who is familiar with TED, if you've been to TED, if you watch TED, you know that the technology that exists, that's in labs, that has been developed and is being used, that actually the actual state of the art is about a decade in most industries ahead of the state of the market. The state of the market is what's available on the market is well behind where existing technology is. But everything that we can identify as an environmental problem has a technological solution. We know what to do about it. We know how to fix it. We're just not. So I kind of liken the humanity to a big fat slob of a couch potato who's had heart surgery and lung cancer and is still smoking and just sits in front of the TV all day and eats a bunch of junk food and they know, yeah, I need to do this different. I need to do that. I need to do that. But we're not. Any ideas on, I know this is a hard thing to distill, but what's in the way of humanity taking this action? It's not a physical barrier. What are maybe the psychological barriers or whatever it is that are in the way that are keeping us from doing what we know that we need to do, we're just not doing it?
First, I'd like to say that there are a lot of the solutions are technical, but a lot of them are actually natural, like, biological solutions, and very simple. And I love that. I think that's great. But it's frustrating. Yeah, there are amazing advances. Like just recently, UCSB announced that they've discovered a way to make solar panels without any rare earth minerals. That is a simple paint-on process. Make it more affordable than even plugging into the grid, and a lot cheaper than any other form of energy. And it's just not out and available yet. And if it were available now, it would save so many lives and so much money, and instantly create a different world. But even colleges privatize and patent these discoveries. So it's frustrating. But I think that brings us back almost to what we were talking about at the beginning, which is that our Achilles heel as a species seems to be our addiction to instant gratification, and just that really, because we have the potential to understand the ramifications of our actions. So you'd think that would be enough to impel us and compel us to make wiser choices. So I think it's just I don't know. What do you think, Julia? I mean, I feel like that refusal to give up that need for instant gratification, and
The pop a pill and lose weight, lower blood sugar, take over the world pill versus like eat healthy, exercise, care for your land, care for each other way of solving the problems.
Yeah.
And I think that like what that speaks to for me though is that I talk about whenever we point at anything that's wrong in the world, what we're actually pointing to is the symptom, not the disease. And for me, the disease is the disease of disconnect. When we're disconnected from the earth, we destroy it and are not present to the fact that we're destroying ourselves. When we're disconnected from another being, we can destroy it and not realize we are destroying ourselves. So I feel in many ways that what's at the heart of the crisis that we face in the external world is a spiritual crisis. It's a heart crisis. And I think we've tended to kind of shy away from words like spirit and spirituality because it's either foo-foo new age or it's dogmatic religion for a lot of people. But I feel like even religions are suffering a spiritual crisis, because why would religions slaughter each other in the name of God if they were truly connected to the sacred? And so I feel that honestly it's a spiritual heart-based crisis that yes, technology is great and can make a difference, but again, it can destroy just as quickly as it can heal based on what's running the show. And I feel that we get more excited and inspired to do the more difficult work of like not instant gratification. Yes, it's going to take a little while to grow something and create a system on a permaculture basis, but the results are unbelievable. And part of the reason they're unbelievable is not just because the vegetables and fruits from that garden taste better, but because your whole being comes alive in that co-creative process. That can't happen even with just going to an organic store and picking it off the shelf. Even an organic fruit or vegetable from an organic kind of store, that's a cool step, but there's nothing more profound than co-creating with a living system and being able to bear the fruit of that partnership and that relationship. And to me, that is a sacred partnership. And I feel like that's what's at the heart of it. And it doesn't mean we need to believe in God or not believe in God. It doesn't even mean we have to believe in the divine or not believe in the divine. But to cultivate that sense of reverence, that awe that Daryl so beautifully talked about in the beginning, like, wow, water comes out and it's drinkable and it's clean. Wow! Like when we're kids, we're on our bellies and a speck of dust is the center of our frickin' universe, and we want to keep sticking it in our mouth over and over again because we want to see what that speck of dust tastes like. And we want to follow that speck of dust, and oh my goodness, a bug just crawled. Did you just see that bug crawling? And then something happens and we start walking, and then we start growing, and all of a sudden we lose our connection to the awe. And I guess if I had to choose a term that's not so loaded about the spiritual crisis, it's about cultivating a sense of wonder and awe in the world. That, I feel, is what will help us embrace the work we need to do to create a thriving community where all beings thrive together and we get to really feel the results of that co-creation.
How'd you get so smart?
I learned it by watching you. Oh, and living with a 1,000-year-old tree.
I'd like to thank you guys all for coming. This, in my opinion, has been our best Free Lunch Bag series to date. Very inspirational and motivation. Well, Erin asked, is there a specific event that's going to change you? And I do hope that after hearing these amazing speakers speak, that you're going to be able to take something from that, whether it's making a small change or a big change in your life. That's why they're here. And hopefully today from 4 to 5 p.m. you can catch them again in Montezuma Hall. So
Tell people to come.
Tell people, bring friends, in conversation with Julie Butterfly Hill and Daryl Hannah in Montezuma Hall Forum. So thank you very much.
Thanks again.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks so much.